Senate Majority Leader Dean Skelos. Thank you very much for joining us. It's good to see you.
Good to be with you.
So if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to start with your budget, the One House budget. It's very interesting because you actually spend slightly less than the executive budget, but yet you restore, particularly in the area of education, upwards of $200 million. Right. So where's the money coming from?
The money, the governor in next year's fiscal year, which is part of this year's fiscal year for school districts,
right,
has $500,000 for different competitive grants. We would take part of that and apply it to this year's school year. It's a little complicated, but that money the governor has in his next year's budget, which is part of next year's school district budget.
Right, because the fiscal year for the state runs April to April, which is not how school districts work.
So it's different, so it's part of the governor's fiscal plan, but we use it this way rather than the way he would.
So then people would not have to compete for it. In other words, you would just simply allocate it.
What we've done is, all along, I indicated that I wanted regional balance in the school aid proposal. Upstate New York in particular, and Long Island were discriminated against in the governor's proposal. New York City was going to take 32% of the cut, where it would normally be about 38.7% of their share. We're restoring close to 70% of the money will go to upstate, especially small city school districts and rural districts that were disproportionately hit in the governor's proposal.
So, and then some to Long Island, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, part of it will come to Long Island, and actually the city of New York will get a little bit more, but no money will be taken away from any region of the state. We're just restoring the traditional shares to the budget.
You know, a cynical person might say that there's a political point at play here, which is, of course, Long Island. Obviously, you are one of the Long Island Nine. It's a very important area for the Senate Republicans to maintain the majority. And then upstate, of course, you have always cast yourselves as the champions of upstate, and education aid is a flashpoint. And in public opinion polls, people say that they really support restoration, or they oppose, really, cuts to education aid. So is there a political calculation here?
No, the calculation is that these two regions of the state, especially upstate, were disproportionately hit by the governor's cuts. So we do not take anything away from the city. We just add this money, as you mentioned at the beginning of the program, to help the small city school districts and rural districts upstate.
Have you had a conversation with the governor about that?
Yeah, I've chatted with them, and our people are looking at it with the governor to see if there's a middle ground, not necessarily as to the amount, but the language that will be used, and concerning the distribution. And
he has signaled, actually, that he's open to some restoration, correct?
Yeah, I believe the governor is open to some restorations. You're right, he has signaled that. As long as we stay within the $132.9 billion budget that he's proposed, and as you mentioned, we actually come in under what the governor's proposed.
Okay, the one thing that you're not doing is the millionaires tax, quote unquote, right? The Assembly Democrats are indeed putting that into their budget bill, and it's an actual millionaires tax in so much as it taxes millionaires and not people who start at $200,000 or $300,000 as it is now. You do have a senator who's a member of your conference who has a bill, John Bonasek, that he is going to introduce. Are you sure that you are not going to do this? We're not going to, when the big ugly comes around, see this?
Yeah, we're not going to do it. I don't believe John has a bill in. What we've shown with the way we've constructed our budget resolution is that you can make restorations throughout the state without the millionaires tax. Now, the restorations that we make in school aid actually come out anywhere from $270 to $280 million. Mm-hmm. Interesting that the Assembly, which would have this tax, only increase aid to education by $200 million. So they're spending money elsewhere, whereas our priority without this tax is helping school districts.
When people come to you, though, and I know that there have been advocates all over the Capitol who say that actually people who are quite wealthy should, quote unquote, pay their fair share, and that people who are low income are getting disproportionately impacted by this budget. What's the response in terms of why millionaires should be protected?
Well, first of all, 1% of the people in New York State pay 40% of the taxes. Right. There's an earned income tax credit in New York State where people are not actually even being even, they're actually getting refunds from the state, even if they're not paying any tax. So that's where the earned income tax credit comes into play. The bottom line is, and Governor Cuomo agrees with the Republican Senate, is that if you keep taxing, you're never going to bring spending under control. New York State and the business community has said it. Even some of the rural newspapers in their editorials, where probably very few, if any, fit into this category of millionaires, are saying you cannot continue the tax policy in the state of New York. Businesses, we want businesses to locate, we want them to grow their businesses here, and we want the wealthy that live in New York State to stay in New York State, not go to Florida like so many people are doing, and where there's no income tax and there's no estate tax.
Another thing that your budget does also is you say that you're eliminating $296 million in cost shifts to local governments. This is mandate. Those are unfunded mandates, right? That's what we're talking about.
And those are unfunded mandates. What the governor did in his proposal was shift, like the 4201 schools, which for the deaf and the blind, he shifted that basically locally, so that the taxpayers at the local level would have to pick up the tab. We feel that that's unfair. It's a mandate on local school districts or municipalities, so we eliminated those cost shifts.
Well, that's worth about $100 million, if I'm not mistaken. Do you know what else?
It's actually a little bit more than that.
It is?
It's probably about $150 million.
What is the other 146 worth of unfunded mandates?
Well,
what would those be?
You know, let me just say this. The Senate has taken a very strong position about unfunded mandates, and that we have to eliminate mandates on local school districts and municipalities so that they can function and not have to raise taxes. And the governor's mandate relief task force really did not come up, I know what he's trying to do, but he did not come up with any solid recommendations other than everybody should work together.
Well, and
to
tier
try to cut
6,
costs.
the sixth tier in the pension fund, right?
Yeah, but that's going to work down the road. It doesn't work right now when we have the $10 billion deficit, and we're asking school districts to take less, and we're asking them to have a property tax cap. So we believe that mandate relief has to be a lot stronger than what's been proposed by this Medicaid task force, and that's why we've opposed all of these cost shifts to the localities. And in fact, when you figure it all out, my guess is between the school aid increase and the elimination of the mandates, it will save school districts about $500 million of the total cuts.
But why not then go even one step further if you say that the mandate task force didn't do its job, when you're certainly not the only person who says that, because a lot of people have been saying it, from the mayors and the county executives, and certainly the school districts are unhappy about it. Why not go further and also include some relief in your budget, which would be, I don't know, or try at any rate. You're not technically allowed to add language, right? So that's a problem. But why not try to tie it to like the Triborough Amendment or the Taylor Law, for example?
We're in a real world up here, and Triborough, a lot of people have said eliminate it. There is no way in the world that the Speaker would eliminate Triborough,
right?
And the Governor has not even said we should eliminate Triborough. So we're at a point now in budget negotiations with our committees starting to meet, our subcommittees passing the resolutions, where we're now in the real world rather than the political make statements world, and we've got to get a budget, and I've told the Governor this, and he agrees that we have to get a budget done before April 1st to restore confidence with the people of the state of New York, and I believe it can happen.
Okay, but to that end, I mean, we have traditionally seen a lot of horse trading in these final weeks, and a lot of issues that are not budgetary get tied to the budget. For example, the tax cap, we have seen the Speaker again start relinking, at least from an ideological standpoint, the tax cap with rent control laws and their extension. Do you believe that will come back and should be part of the budget process, or should be done after the budget actually
I
passes?
believe that it should be done after the budget.
Right.
And that the more programmatic type things, I think those should be discussed after the budget. The people of the state right now want us to get a budget done right away, not fill it up with all the programmatic issues that should stand or fall on their own.
But you do still believe that you're going to be able to get a budget on time?
I do believe, and I think I know the Governor wants to get one on time too. We talked last night, we talked today, and he is really focused on getting it on time, and I don't think anybody wants to go through the extenders if the budget is late.
Well, but he has the last word on that because of the extenders, which we saw with David Patterson. He holds you guys up against the wall and says you either shut down the government or you do what I want, which is not a situation you want to be in.
Right. No, nobody's want us to shut down government, and I don't think anybody wants it to be a situation where the Assembly and the Senate goes two ways, and you put a budget together. My objective is to have a three-way budget, go through our conference committee process, work with the Assembly Democrats, get a budget on time, no new taxes, control government spending, cut the spending, and stay within the governor's budget of $132 billion.
You have, though, you kept the medical malpractice piece in from the Medicaid relief plan, but you took out something, the living wage, for, I think, for home health aides. And the problem there is that that was given to, for lack of a better word, 1199 and SEIU, the union there, in order to get them to sign on. If you take that piece away, just like if you take Med-Mal away, the hospitals are going to be upset. The union's not going to back it. Don't you? You're upsetting a very delicate balance.
Well, first of all, the living wage part does not save the state any money, does not save hospitals any money. What it does is it costs home care and personal care more money. The medical mal parts, which are going to be negotiated during this budget, because Speaker Silver has indicated no on those, if you eliminate those two, the hospitals would be taking about $400 million more in hits.
Right.
So that's why that was included in our bill.
So, but you're not concerned that you could reignite if, in fact, you take out these pieces that were really given to Greater New York Hospital Association and SEIU 1199 in order to get them on board, that you could reignite a war?
Well, 1199 will have to make their decision, but again, there's nothing being taken away from 1199 that they have right now. With the hospitals, they will be potentially losing an additional $400 million on top of what they are being cut in the governor's proposal.
Okay, so and the governor also asked the legislature to pass the MRT plan as is. I mean, he put the whole thing in there, and has he indicated to you that he's open to negotiation on that?
First of all, the way the state constitution is, different court decisions, the governor bundled everything together so that unless we have an agreement with the governor on a final budget and the Assembly,
right,
it's a take it or leave it proposition. Well, life is not take it or leave it in Albany. The legislature has the right to participate in this process. That's why we've been elected. And I think the governor understands that. I mean, there are certain parts of his MRT and other parts of the budget that he feels very strongly about, and I believe that will be part of the final negotiations.
What did you give him the heads up on the last in, first out piece that you have now created sort of a hybrid of what he wanted and what Mayor Bloomberg wanted, and have put that into your budget proposal?
We put it in the budget because we believe in it, and just like the governor gave us a heads up after we passed it that he had another proposal.
So you didn't give him a heads up is what you're saying?
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
just
okay.
like he didn't.
Right, but Mayor Bloomberg is okay with this.
I think the mayor likes it. It's better than nothing.
Right.
And it does foster the compromise that the governor talked about.
One ancillary topic that's just coming up again and again and again today is redistricting. You're going to pass today this bill that is a constitutional amendment that sets up a bipartisan independent redistricting commission this way. You say this fulfills your pledge to Ed Koch. Ed Koch says this does not fulfill your pledge to Ed Koch. So are you really, this is it, you're done, you're not going to do anything else this year?
Ed Koch is a former mayor that has the right to his opinion. My job when I'm elected to the state Senate and I take my oath of office is to support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the state of New York. And we believe that the way the Constitution is laid out, the proposal that was by David Valesky a year or two ago and the one by Governor Cuomo, number one, is not constitutional because you cannot delegate away the authority of the legislature. And in each instance, under David Valesky's bill, Senator Valesky, there would have been 8 Democrat appointments, 2 Republican appointments, and under Governor Cuomo's recommendation, it would be 6 Democrat appointments, 2 Republican appointments. So to me, that is not what you would call nonpartisan redistricting.
So you're done here, is that correct? You're not negotiating anymore?
We're done because we believe that the Constitution very clearly says that the legislature cannot delegate away its authority. The Democrats had the opportunity when they were in power to pass a constitutional amendment that would have been voted upon this November, and if approved by the voters, would have been implemented for the redistricting that we have to complete for the 2012 elections.
So if Ed Koch calls you a liar, is that going to be a problem for you?
You know, it's unfortunate to use that type of language, but if he wants to say it, he can say it. My constituents know that I'm not a liar and that I'm going to do what I feel is correct.
Okay, well, Senator, I appreciate all of your time, and it's been good talking to you.
Thank you.